Welcome to the Art of Transitions. My name is Gwen Mazza and I will be your host. Our guest today is Karen Cardillo. Karen and I will be sharing a great conversation regarding Lost and Found, a Woman's Life. At this time, we'd like to take a quick break and then invite you to join us. Welcome back. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Gwen.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us, and I was so excited to have you. One of the things that I'd like folks to know about you in the community is that you are one of our local professors here at MCC, and I asked you specifically to join us because of your great wisdom, experience, and information around women in transitions. Would you mind giving us a little background around your education, how you got into the passion and love of working with women?
My background, I am a nurse. I'm a registered nurse, so I have a bachelor's degree in nursing and a master's degree in nursing, and I worked for many years as a nurse and taught for 20 years, taught nursing at MCC for 20 years. And kind of moving into that middle age period when it's really kind of common for us to rethink our lives and such. And a number of events happened in my life that caused me to reprocess and maybe change my path a little bit. And so I myself had some health problems that probably were the result of too much stress, long-term stress, those kinds of things, making choices that may not have been so good for me. Basically, I wasn't particularly healthy, and I was very sad and felt like I had lost who I was. Didn't really know who I was anymore. I had spent many years teaching. I have children. I'm married, trying to do everything that women do, it all. Career, family, spouse, the whole thing, and do it perfectly. And in trying to do all that stuff, I kind of forgot who I was and where I was going. Many things happened, which were not all that pleasant, but kind of caused me to pause and step back and say, is this working for me? And it wasn't. And so I needed to make some changes. I needed to change my life. I needed to change what I was doing, and I need to rediscover who I was or who I am.
Hence why we decided to go with a Lost and Found title here today, because I think it was really appropriate. Your education, your background, and your experiences over the years were part of the reason to address this topic. And I also appreciated your own personal journey. As you and I have had a chance to get to know each other over these last 3 years now? 2.5
3 or 4, somewhere around there.
I can't believe that. I just realized that as I'm sitting here going, how many years have we been together now? Knowing each other for 3 or 4 years, we've seen a little bit of each other's journey as well. And one of the things I truly appreciated about you was not only that you were willing to share your journey with me, but I have seen you take that experience and move it right into your classrooms. Absolutely. And I think that was the silver lining of all of the somewhat unpleasant events that happened to me about 10 years ago. They all sort of came together, and the domino effect. And what it allowed me to do, I had to leave a long-term relationship. It wasn't working for me, it wasn't working for him, and it wasn't working for my children. As that was sort of in process, I then ended up having to sort of think about a different job. My present job wasn't really working well for me either. So all of a sudden, lots and lots of changes. And it was hard, and nobody likes change. We all know that. And I really never had any experience going through those changes, life crises changes like that, and didn't have a whole lot of my own experience or support with that. So I was lucky enough to reach out and to get support in a lot of different areas, therapists and friends and new people that I met and courses and classes that I took and new books that I read and such. And so over the course of, I would say, 2.5 years or so, 3 years probably, really got to know myself again and to figure out who I was and where I wanted to go. I think when you and I were growing up and our moms were sharing with their friends and they were going through their own lost and found kind of processes, I don't believe, at least my family did not, there were some long-term friends for my mom, and they had somebody to process with on the front porch with a cup of coffee. Our culture, I think, today moves so quickly that we don't have as much time to do that. We make appointments to have coffee. We make coffee dates.
Right.
Which I think is a very different way to live today in the 21st century as our moms did, before us. So some of the things you and I have talked about, that some of the changes that women go through and the life challenges that you and I have talked about and identified were really the concept of losing ourselves. How do we end up losing ourselves in relationships and work and all, as well as the empty nest syndrome, as well as health changes, as well as retirement. All of these things can cause us to have to stop and pause again. So as I remember being, I remember being on the track of you get married, you have kids, the whole piece that you're talking about.
Been there.
Let's get it going, let's go. And also, I think I hit the spot in my 30s, in my mid-30s, maybe even a little earlier, when everything I had wanted to really work for was in front of me at a certain level, and I had to stop and pause and go, and I think I heard you say, is this all there is, or is this what it is? And there was still this piece that I wasn't quite sure at times if I really knew fully who I was. And I think one of the things you also mentioned that is some of the hard choices you have to make, the leaving of a relationship. There was a time where you got quiet?
Yes. Yes.
Is that when it started to find yourself again? Or was it even before that?
I think that it was before that. I think probably leaving a relationship was a byproduct of getting quiet. I had never, I was a type E woman who did it all, and I had calendars and lists and worked from sun up to sundown and managed everything perfectly and had extremely high expectations of myself. Well, how much of that can you do before you are completely burned out and you can't even drag yourself out of bed? And I think coming back and saying, this isn't working, and learning how to be quiet. I didn't know how to be quiet. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to meditate. I didn't know how to think about me first. I was on the bottom of the list. And everybody else was on the top of the list. And you never get to the bottom of the list. So I never got to me. And when
that's very profound. What you just said was so profound. I was not at the top of the list. I was always at the bottom of the list. And I never got to the bottom of the list. And I know that that is so true for so many of us.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly true for women. And part of that is gender-based. We are hardwired to be nurturers. We are hardwired to multitask. We do it well, and we get rewarded for it. And so because we get rewarded for it, we do more of it.
Right.
And we take care of everybody and everything. And some of us go overboard and cross the line and then can't take care of ourselves or don't know how to take care of ourselves because we don't know what we need. So when I started learning to become quiet and to meditate, to take time out for myself, that I deserved it and earned it, and the self-esteem pieces and things, I think that's where I began to question, what am I doing here, and what's going on around me, and are the people that I love the most happy and healthy? And I didn't think so. So that was the first domino.
And the first part of, as the show says, transitions.
Yes.
Where in order for a transition to begin, there has to be an ending.
Right.
The quietness gave you the opportunity to reflect truthfully, honestly on the situation at hand.
Right. And it's so hard to listen to our hearts. It is so hard because you're so afraid. You're so afraid. You know what you need to do. But to actually see it, to actually accept it, and to actually do it, very hard.
the next space is usually that place where there's some confusion. Even after you've made the decision, then there's that time, which I actually think is a great place where we start to refine ourselves. Whenever I come up against any great challenge or obstacle, it's almost a moment of madness. And yet, amongst all that is a lot of time for creativity. So in that space, where did you find yourself, ma'am?
I did all kinds of interesting things for me. They were interesting for me. I'm not sure they were all that interesting for other people.
Right.
But to rediscover that I love being outdoors and that I love being out in the country, and that I allowed myself to do some things that I didn't do as a child that I always wished I had. I learned how to ride a horse.
Did you
I
really?
did. I took riding lessons. That was me, the middle-aged woman in the group of teenage girls taking riding lessons. It was most amusing.
That's great.
But I did it, and then I booked myself a vacation at a dude ranch in Montana.
Did you? I didn't know that. That's
yes.
exciting.
And then I went on a cattle drive. And I went to Alaska.
Did you really?
I started doing everything that I always wanted to do and always said, well, maybe someday, or wasn't meant for you. I took classes in things that were not particularly useful. I took a lifeguarding class just for the fact to be able to say, I did it. Things like that. Sports medicine class. I was doing all kinds of strange things. And I think my children thought I had lost my mind.
That is that great place of being really creative and experiencing life.
Absolutely.
And really finding out some of the things that you wanted to try and didn't want to try. And I also hear in your sharing of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was such a freedom.
Oh, absolutely.
There was a freedom you were finding.
Yes, yes. At the time all this was going on, my younger son was about 16-ish, and so my older son was in college, so he wasn't around as much. My younger son was going back and forth between his father and I, so that did give me some alone time, which I had not had ever before. I grew up in a family of 6 children. I went to college and lived in sorority houses and dorms. I left college and got married. I never lived alone. Right. So it was a wonderful time of freedom. If I didn't want to get dressed in the morning, I didn't. If I didn't want to go to bed at night, I didn't. It's kind of like being a teenager again, I guess.
You think?
Yeah.
Like,
it was
just
great.
for a moment, with a little bit of adult opportunities.
Yeah, not that puberty stuff.
Yes, thank you. I think I'll leave that one behind too as well.
Yeah.
Very neat. So this part of you that got to blossom, and I know from your teachings and your work and just having been with you that you spend your time educating women through the classroom.
Yes.
And also, I also know that passion of wanting to do it more kind of connected, just like a conversation like you and I are having.
Yes, yes. After I sort of resettled into a new career, I actually was able to transfer out of the Department of Nursing at MCC into health and physical education. And so it's always amusing to me to think that I am a gym teacher, although I'm not a gym teacher, but I always found that something to chuckle about.
Yes.
But instead of taking care of people who are sick, or primarily teaching students how to take care of people who are sick, I was able to shift into what I would call health. It's so much easier to stay healthy than it is to deal with something once it happens. And so I was healthy now. At this point I was healthy. I felt good. I understood what had happened to me and where I was going. I still had work to do. I still have work to do.
Right, we all do.
But what I wanted to do is I wanted to share my journey with women, because I just saw so many of us, not just myself, in the same scenario, whether they were my age, a little younger, a little older. I wanted them not to get into the type B, got to do it all, got to be perfect, give, selfless behavior. And so I wrote a course called Women's Health and Wellness to be taught as a health class, and although we do talk about some health issues, osteoporosis, some other women's issues, heart disease, and all those other things, they are sort of on the side, much more focused on how do you take care of yourself. Fitness and nutrition, and what I think my women love the most is when we get into the chapters on emotional wellness and assertive communication and stress management, relationships. I am always incredibly baffled and startled about how many women don't know what a healthy relationship is.
And how we can get so lost in the life of another.
Right.
And it does, I do believe, come through that selflessness.
It does. It's normal for us to be selfless. It's normal for us to be givers. But again, there is that line. And, you know, a little is good, a lot is not necessarily better. And once you've crossed the line, it's almost like you're in a hole and have to climb your way out again. So I want my life lessons to go forward. I guess I've always seen myself as a teacher. I do that well. I know I do that well.
Yes, you do.
I like being in the classroom, and I like to stimulate people enough to think about change. What could I do? Am I okay with where I am? If you are, that's good. But if you're not, what are you going to do different today?
How do you think folks begin to realize when things aren't okay anymore? What are some of the signs and symptoms that you witness? I know what I see when I have folks come before me, but I was just wondering what you were seeing these days.
Anger, frustration, hostility, sadness, blank expressions on their face, multiple physical minor complaints initially, back pain, headaches, exhaustion, just dragging themselves through the day without having any joy in it, getting out of bed in the morning and wishing you were going back to bed. I also teach stress management. That's my other big area. And so do a lot with students there in talent and self-assessment, looking at themselves. And very often you see mouths drop open and go, oh, I get it. I see why I am doing what's happening here to me. And realizing that's not normal. It's not normal to go through life sad.
Actually, it may be more normal because of the way we are culturally today. It was really very frightening. Would you say and agree that it's probably maybe normal and yet very not healthy?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because the complications that come with all that stress and all that focus on others as opposed to taking care of self. I'm not wanting us to become selfish. I'm wanting us to become self-aware.
Right,
like
self-aware, right.
To become very self-aware. And there's a really fine line in there.
Yeah.
There's that fine line where folks begin to say, well, you're not taking care of us. As a woman in our culture, because you're right, we are nurturers. And as a result, we're always balancing, okay, where is it taking care of you and where is it taking care of me, and where is it that I can go so overboard myself and get selfish. And so I think that's a real challenge for us, not only just as women, but is both genders. Particularly for us as women, though, we have already been year after year, generation after generation in that nurturing position. So we do run a high risk of losing ourselves. Losing ourselves.
Absolutely.
And then when we find ourselves, there's challenges.
Yes, because I like myself.
I know.
And I found a lot of stuff I love to do.
Yes.
And then it becomes hard to fit that into one's life, and then prioritizing this, and I find myself, I want it all now, which is what we all want. We all want it all now.
Yes.
But I can't have it all now, and I'm getting much better with patience and much better with saying, okay, we'll do it here, we'll do it then, and waiting until the time is right. This summer, I took piano lessons.
Neat.
That was my challenge. Years ago, when I was a little girl, I took piano lessons, and I was always disappointed with myself that I quit. So now I'm taking piano lessons again, and I've been thinking about that for a while. But again, it takes time, and so allowing myself to not take on too many things so that I don't become overwhelmed and again lose myself. That is for me what is a big problem, and I believe probably many other people too. We take on more and more and more,
and not let go of things to make room for the new.
Right.
One of the other challenges that I experienced in my own life is, as I was taking on new activities and new ideas, is how you were talking about how to fit that into the life and with the people who know us. Because they're used to us fulfilling certain roles, they're used to us being always well. So when we have even something like a medical issue, our medical issues can actually get overlooked because we're always paying attention to the care of others.
Oh, yes.
What have you noticed in terms of just even medical issues that we have to prepare ourselves for, and we need to prepare those around us for?
True. Well, there are normal transitions in life, just as we all had to go through puberty, and
Yes.
it wasn't fun.
Very glad that's over.
Yes. And we all have to go through those times when we discover we're no longer 20, 25, and we
Yes.
don't have that same figure anymore.
That's correct.
And whether you're male or female.
Right.
And then as we move, continuing on into that middle age, and for women, that menopause period. And for men, that andropause, which is not as well known.
That's correct.
But it's definitely becoming more and more in the forefront. But because we're talking about women here, that menopause period, I think that many women see this as a horrendous thing to have happen, and it's a disease to be avoided at all costs. It's not. What's the alternative? You're dead. If you don't make it to menopause.
That's right. That's correct.
And
guess I never thought of it that way, but that's a really neat way to approach that.
I have my quirky little ways to look at things.
I like it.
But we want to push it away. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want to know about it. It's bad. It's horrible. All these bad things happen. You don't feel good. You got hot flashes and blah blah blah. Maybe, maybe not. But because we perceive it as a horrendous, unpleasant situation, then it becomes that way. Right. The way we think is the way we talk and the way we behave. And so we lead ourselves into that. And I know that it's not all that pleasant. I know that. But I also know that there are some positives to that. I think with those changing and those hormones shifting and settling, that our wisdom kind of comes to the forefront. We're better able to process, and we have lots of wisdom and life lessons. I also know that, eventually you no longer worry about whether you're going to have any more children or not, and that is a freeing,
and I think that gets underestimated so often.
Oh, definitely.
For a freeing piece for women that we don't necessarily talk about as much, and maybe actually could even dedicate a whole show to, quite honestly, because when you're in the childbearing years, you really are focused on how many children do you want, and paying attention to make sure that there isn't any unwanted pregnancies, and then moving through your life to keep planning forward. There is a great freedom in that.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I think I love the most about this middle-age menopause, perimenopausal period is this: I don't care anymore about what people think.
There really is that rite of passage in there.
It is startling. It's if I wanted to wear purple and green and orange outfit today, I really don't care if someone's looking at me funny. It is an incredible sense of freedom. You feel more comfortable expressing your views, expressing your point of view, and not in a negative way, not being mean or whatever, but this is the way I feel, this is the way I see it, this is what I believe, take it or leave it.
For me, it's a really newfound freedom in many ways to, although I've rarely, especially my family, I can see them watching this now, I really do have the opportunity and have very much expressed myself over the years. I have found a more sense of freedom and being more firm as I've moved through the ages and the stages of my life, as I've gone through losing myself and finding myself again. One of the things I equate it to is I see myself as Phoenix rising again. Again and again.
The Phoenix rising. Absolutely. What a wonderful image.
Yes.
And I love that image.
Because I do think that we go through these waves, as we're talking about, and we do lose ourselves because we get so excited maybe and invested into different parts of our life. And then we wake up and it's just like, wow, I really went way over here. And then or sometimes we crash and burn. And then we have to sit back and I like your piece of the quiet. I wish more people would have the opportunity to learn how to meditate, to take time to become really peaceful.
Right.
Because you and I know it doesn't take that long.
No, and I unfortunately I think people still have an odd sense of what meditation is. But meditation, for me, my morning meditation, is morning. In the morning is my walk with my dog at 5:30. Now that's not sitting chanting anywhere. I wander through the woods with my dog with a flashlight at this time of year.
And if we did want to chant in the woods, we could do
fine,
that too.
I'd be happy to do that.
Right.
But but when people begin to understand that how one quiets oneself can be very specific to yourself, you start going, oh, this is so cool.
And it's so powerful to learn how to quiet. And really what you and I are talking about is to quiet the outside chatter.
Yes.
And to quiet that inside chatter.
Yes.
To remember who we really are.
Right.
To embrace who we really are. And to make choices that reflect our ability to embrace ourselves and be who we really are.
Absolutely.
Some of the things that you said as we were talking about this fabulous journey is you really got into some reading and some materials, and you were kind enough to supply us with a list of your top choices if folks are interested, and women particularly are interested in rediscovering themselves, finding who they might be. And we do have the list for our viewers to jot down as we're chatting. One of the ones that you chose was self-nurture. You also suggest Healing Mind, Healthy Women. The third one was the Women's Comfort Book. And then finally, The Female Brain. Out of that one, which would you pick as the top of the top for the moment?
Well,
sorry to have you choose. I'd like to have an idea.
The top of the moment. The most recent one of those that I read was The Female Brain, and I really like that. That's based on research that's been done about how women and men are different, that our brains work differently. It is gender-based. It's not one is better than the other. They're just different, and they're complementary. But for women to understand that is important, and for men to be aware of the fact that we are not the same as them. So that was a wonderful book, and it was written in such a way that even though it was presenting research, scientific research, it was fun to read.
Oh, nice.
It was fun to read. Now, a number of my students in my women's health class have read that book, and young women, and they were very excited about this, and they reading paragraphs in class and saying, this is me, this is me, this is me. And I love seeing that piece. So that was the one I've read most recently. The first three have more to do with how to take care of yourself. They were early books that I read on my journey when I was going back to say, okay, you love yourself. How do you take care of someone you love? And it was, okay, here, here's some things that you can do and give yourself permission to do. Like, I had never had a massage or a manicure or a pedicure or a facial. I had
but
never.
You made sure the child got the soccer ball, and you made
sure
that
Lord,
the camp
yes.
was exactly. And it's always that balance word. I'm not wanting us to turn into, selfish.
Oh, absolutely not.
I was just
absolutely
looking at
not.
balance, and really, because if we aren't well, we can't be well for others, which is really the bottom line.
Right. And I think for me, one of the biggest things that I had to confront and accept over the time that I wasn't well enough to care for my children in the best way possible. I cared for my children wonderfully. I love my sons dearly, and they're wonderful men at this point. But if I couldn't love myself, how could I take care of them in the best possible way? And as I got healthier, they did too. It's so wonderful to see. And it continues. And I by no means think that I am perfectly healthy. And it's a journey. It's always an issue. And I go back and forth. I have places and things that I'm always going to be challenged with. For me, it's food and activity and that I have to focus on.
Karen Cardillo, thank you so much.
You're
as always.
welcome.
It's always my pleasure
Gwen,
to be with you,
I
love.
love talking with you.
Thank you. And I want to thank our viewing audience. We hope that you have been able to find some ways to start to help find yourself again in this lost and found world for women. We would also like to invite you, if you have other ideas or suggestions that you would like to see presented on this show, feel free to contact me and let me know what your ideas will be. For now, we want to again thank you as our viewing audience, and thank you again for viewing The Art of Transitions.
This program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.